What's up guys, my name is Anna, welcome to a brand new video where I'm going to be talking all about Assassin's Creed Origins. This game is set to come out on the 27th of October 2017, which leaves me just over a month to get everything together, so I decided I would give you guys everything I think you need to know about the game and some of my own personal research. But before I get into the video, I want you guys to leave a comment down below on what your favourite Assassin's Creed game is and why. I'm really interested in knowing and look forward to reading your comments, so without further ado, let's get started. So before I go on, I asked you guys on Twitter and a couple of people on Discord if they had any questions that they would like me to answer on this video about Assassin's Creed Origins, and I got a couple, so I'm going to share those with you now. The first question comes from Icewire on Twitter, and she asked, "What's that combat system like, boy? I'm slow as fuck and can't wrap my head around it." That's okay, that's what I'm here for. So IGN released a video talking with the developers about the new combat system, and I'm going to play a little bit of the combat in the background for you now. The difference with this combat system is that the weapons you use affect how you actually fight, and it affects how close you have to be to an enemy to actually hit them with your attacks. So for example, if you have a short sword, you have to get closer to your enemy to actually attack them. You can have a spear, which you can attack from a bit further distance. You don't just have the attack button and a counter button like you used to have that used to light up above the head and you could counter it. But in this one, it is literally a light attack and a heavy attack. So you have two different options there. As you're fighting, you gain something called adrenaline, which is a little bar above the player's health, I think it is. You'll see it below, it's arrowed on the screen now. That will eventually determine if you put forward a heavy attack to which you can actually down your opponent. There is about 8 different weapons now, weapon types, which are on the screen now. The developers have said they've put a lot more into this combat system because they've had an extra year to work on it. They realised that it was getting a little bit stagnant. They wanted to change it up a little bit and make it feel new to the player, so this is why they've changed this combat system to a degree. Another new thing with the combat system also is that there is also a frenzy mode. So you enter frenzy mode and this gives you 10 seconds to just unleash hell on your opponents, as you see now in the combat arena. I think this is a fantastic way of implementing a new thing as well, because it's something we've not seen in Assassin's Creed before. I will leave a link to the IGN video down below if you want to go and check that out. It's only about 8 minutes long or something. It's not very long, and I just enjoyed watching it because they were telling you that about the boss battles, how they've changed up these gladiator arenas where you can go in and you can just practice your fighting style but also get new weapons and special items from those gladiator fights, and I think that's going to be something that I'll be doing a lot on the game as well. So thank you very much, Icewire, for your question, and I hope that's answered it well. The next question comes from Druidic Giblets, otherwise known as Lee from Critical Miss, and his question is, "Anna, has the air brake to help change the game system and rework it actually made it feel any different, especially having more time to write a story for the game?" I'm going to talk about the change to the game system first. I think with the change in the combat system, as I've answered in Icewire's question, I feel like that has given it a lot more for the gamers, especially people who like the RPG elements, where you can choose how you want to fight and it's not just the same style constantly, especially with being able to choose crossbows from long range, long spears if you want to deal heavy damage, and swords if you just want to go in and be fast and quick and get it over and done with. I think that's given the gamers a lot more to go on, rather than just the simple attack and counter strategy that we've had before. So I think they've really thought about that system in a lot more depth over the past 2 years, whereas if they only had a year to deal with that, they probably wouldn't have done it as good, I don't think, and I really hope that it's not buggered when we play it. I feel with the story, when they've gone with Egypt, it's a huge time period for them to look into and to choose what part of that time period they want to implement into the story, especially with, you know, the likes of, you've got Tutankhamun. They could have done a storyline around that, but they've chosen another period in time where they could probably get a lot more out of it, which is the civil war conflict in Egypt, which I believe is the right period from where they're going from with Cleopatra and Julius Caesar and Ptolemy XIII. I do think they've had to think about it long and hard, because obviously there's a lot of people who study Egyptian history, so they've had to do it justice, because people would be freaking out, where previously not a lot of people knew about the Crusades, not a lot of people knew about the Italian Renaissance era. A lot of people didn't really know about the Civil War in America, other than Americans, really. I didn't know much about the Civil War in America. And with Black Flag, with the Pirates era, not a lot of people knew about that. Whereas with Egypt, it's a huge topic that a lot of people go through in school, so they have to do it well. And I think if they only had a year, they probably couldn't have done it well enough. So hopefully the year break has actually made it better for the game, and much more exciting and intriguing for fans of the franchise like myself, who were starting to get a little bit bored. Although Syndicate was a good game, I was starting to get a little bit bored with the same old. So hopefully this is going to change and relight the fire and stuff again. So I hope it cleared it up, and thank you very much for the question. So first up, I'm going to talk about the setting of the game, where it's set, when it's set, and then give you a brief overview of all of the characters and what we know about them currently. So from the gameplay that I'm currently showing you now, you will notice that this game is set in ancient Egypt, one of my favourite time periods in history. So I am very, very excited to see what they do with this. But more specifically, this is not just the city of Egypt, but it is all of the surrounding regions of Egypt. And this leads on to the next part, which is about the map. The map is apparently going to be the biggest in the Assassin's Creed franchise to date. They started with a map the size of Black Flag, but that was just land. They hadn't implemented water, the Nile, they hadn't implemented any of that into the map at that time in the development of the game. So we know from that, I can kind of decipher that this is going to be a huge ass map. But what's more interesting is that they didn't just develop this alone. They brought in people like Egyptologists, they brought in Egypt historians to help build this world with them, to give it a more authentic feel, a much more historically accurate feel as well, which is important, especially considering this is one of the biggest time periods in history for political unrest. And as you can see, this is a beautiful game. It is very well designed, very well structured, it's bright, it's lavish, there's so much to see, there's so much to do, and I'm very, very excited to get into it. So what I'm thinking about this game and what I've tried researching is the date in which it's set, and the only date I've found is 49 BC, and for the characters that are in it, this isn't a bad idea. 49 BC is about 19 years before the fall of ancient Egypt and the uprising of the Roman Empire in Egypt itself. So this is kind of a good place to start, and it is around about the time that the Egyptian Civil War happened. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail later. So this is probably the time period that I think this is going to be set, considering the characters that are in it and the premise of the game as a whole. So let's start on characters. So Bayek, as you'll be seeing him on the screen now, is our main character. Bayek is one of the last Medjai, which is pretty much like a police-like duty in Egypt. The Medjai were peacekeepers, they upheld the law, they carried out justice, and they came from an ancient lineage of Medjai who were appointed by the pharaohs. And in ancient Egypt, being appointed by the pharaohs was like being appointed by God. So Bayek is an honoured man to be in his position. He will be known as a well-respected man in a position of power in society due to this. This is what I believe. He is from the Oasis of Sewell, which is a little village on the outskirts of Egypt, and being from here means he represents an older and more traditional way of life, and developers have said that this will be shown in Bayek's personality throughout the game. But not only do we have this, we have a brand new character and a brand new kind of personal thing going on. At Gamescom, they unveiled a brand new character who is going to be alongside Bayek in his adventures in Egypt. And this is going to be a character named Aya, who is on the screen now. And no, that's not Aya from Game of Thrones. She's actually Bayek's wife, and Bayek's wife in an Egyptian style, that is. They grew up together, they trained together, they learned how to fight together, they both have the same ideals. However, Aya is not a Medjai. Because they grew up together, they've trained together, they have the same ideas about what they want about what they want about life, but they have different ways about going about getting what they want, which is a little bit like Jacob and Evie from Assassin's Creed Syndicate if we think about it, because Evie took a more stealthy approach, Jacob was a much more brute approach, and I'm so excited to see a new dynamic between Bayek and Aya, because I don't think we've seen a marriage in Assassin's Creed where it's actually had an influence on the story, and there's been two main characters who are fighting alongside each other which are married, which is a little bit different, so I'm quite excited about that. Now we're going to talk about Cleopatra. Oh boy, there's a lot we can talk about Cleopatra, right? Everyone knows who Cleopatra is. If you don't know who she is, then what on earth are you doing? You must be sat under a rock. Just Google her, you'll find out tons of shit about her. But there's a lot of discussion about her, there's a lot of controversy around her, being in relations with Caesar, Julius Caesar that is, and apparently having a child to him, which is a bit strange, called Little Caesar or Caesarion or whatever his name was. But I don't know if that's going to be put into the game. I think it would take too much time to put into the game, and I think it would drown out a lot of the political unrest and the actual storyline that they're probably going for. So this time period, let me just talk about the Egyptian Civil War, which is what I believe they're trying to push with this game. Let's start with at the very beginning of the Egyptian Civil War. We have Ptolemy XIII, who is the pharaoh during this time period, and Ptolemy has a sister, and his sister is Cleopatra, but Cleopatra is also his wife, and she's also the queen. Are you with me? Probably not. At this time period, he exiles Cleopatra. He forces her to flee to Syria, where she begins to build an army to go back to Egypt and overthrow the throne and enter this kind of civil war with Ptolemy. But at the same time, this other sister is trying to take the throne, and it's kind of like a three-way civil war. So you may be asking, how does Julius Caesar get involved with this? Well, there is a general called Pompey the Great that comes into play here. Pompey the Great was defeated in the Roman Empire. He was a general, but he was badly defeated. I'm not too sure how, but I just know that he was defeated, and he went to Egypt to seek refuge by Pharaoh Ptolemy. Ptolemy sees this as a way to earn the favour of Julius Caesar and orders Pompey to be killed. However, when Julius Caesar rolls into town and he's like, "Where's my friend Pompey?" and Ptolemy throws his severed head at Julius Caesar, Julius Caesar's like, "Oh hell fuck no, I don't like this shit, you're a bitch." And it kind of backfires on Ptolemy, to which Cleopatra wins the heart and the respect of Julius Caesar, and he fights with her instead. So around about 47 BC was when the Battle of the Nile happened. This was when Cleopatra and Julius Caesar's forces really came together and fought against King Ptolemy. Well, I say King Ptolemy, Pharaoh Ptolemy. They go into the Battle of the Nile, which I want to say will be in Assassin's Creed Origins, because it would be a really, really good historical battle to put in. So they battle at the Battle of the Nile, Cleopatra and Caesar win, and Ptolemy is forced to flee the city, and it's been historically recorded that he died trying to cross the Nile. He drowned in the Nile, which is actually quite poetic. So that is pretty much the basis of the Egyptian Civil War. So I'm kind of interested to see how they're going to implement that in the game. So I think with a couple of the trailers, there's a lot of heavy speculation about civil unrest, social standing decreasing, and a lot of political debates going on. So I'm really interested to see if this is the time period that they really push into the story. And considering that these are characters that are actually in the game, it's all the more reasonable to suggest that this is the battle, that these are the people that are going to be fighting in the game. But how Bayek and Aya fit into that, I'm not too sure. So I'm actually really interested to see how this goes about, because I love how Ubisoft kind of twist things in. They keep it historically accurate, but they add little bits and bobs that just make it feel all the more authentic. This could possibly have happened, but it hasn't happened because it's fiction. It's crazy. I love it. Another thing that I was thinking about was the actual present day storyline arc, because we haven't really been told a lot about that. And I think that's what's needed, because the ending of Assassin's Creed Syndicate left a lot of mystery. A lot of mystery. And I'm not going to spoil the end of Assassin's Creed Syndicate for you, but if you've played the game, you'll know that there was some shit about to kick off. So I want them to continue with the shit kickery in this game. I think it would be quite nice if this was the final game for Assassin's Creed, because, to be honest, I think it's been going on for a long while, and to take it back to the very beginning of the Assassin's Brotherhood would be really, really good to have, because it would mean that we get to see how it all began, but also how it's ending, in a sense. It would be quite weird, quite juxtaposed, and I think it would be really cool to have that implementing into the actual franchise. But they'd have to do it correctly, because if they did it wrong, there'd be a hell of a lot of plot holes in the series that a lot of fans would pick up on and not be happy about. That is all I know currently about the game. If you've been watching the gameplay videos, you'll probably see a couple of different changes with the actual interface of the game. You'll notice that there's no mini-map. They've changed that to kind of a Fallout, Elder Scrolls-esque compass at the top of the screen, which I think kind of opens it up so you can see more of the game, which I'm quite happy about. The customization screen feels very Destiny-like, where there's little boxes for your armor, for your weapons, and you can choose it that way. It's very, very much Destiny-like. So thank you guys for watching very much. Hopefully this has cleared up a couple of concerns for you guys about Assassin's Creed Origins, a little bit more about the story and the time period, and a little bit about the characters and how we can expect this game to play out. So thank you guys for watching, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and as always guys, I will see you in the next video.